Good morning. I'm Alan, and this is our Sunday morning Bible study at 9 a.m. And this morning we're live again. We're starting a new book, which is the book of Colossians. And I hope that we're just going to do the introduction. But what I'd like you to do is read through the book at least once. Just sit down and try to read through it in one sitting. And if you can, great. If not, just work your way through the book and read it through at least once in the next week to get familiar with it. And then there's several things that we're going to look at and go through. I've got my coffee this morning, and I hope that you do also. And also donuts. Which I'll eat after the Bible study because I don't want to get the powdered sugar all over the Bible. But best deal going too, Walmart. But anyways, so I'm glad that you're here. And Colossians was written by the Apostle Paul. And he sent this letter with two other letters, which would be the letter to the Ephesians and the letter to Philemon. And he sent this through his friend Tychicus. And the person who founded the church at Colossae was Epaphras. He was also an associate of Paul. And so he comes to Paul. He says, "Hey, Paul, I've got some news for you. There's some things going on in the church that either he needed help addressing or he thought Paul should address." And so when Paul responds to the people of Colossae, he writes two letters. This one, which affects the whole church there, and of course us in the modern day as the church, and the letter with Philemon to deal with a specific problem one-on-one. And Philemon was about the runaway slave, and it's a good letter. So Paul was in prison between AD 61 and 63, and this letter was written during that time. Some Bibles call it, some scholars call it the prison letters, and rightly so. And there are several issues that Paul is addressing. First, in Acts chapter 19, verses 8 through 10, that is the beginning of the church at Colossae. And he spent 3 years in Ephesus during his third missionary journey. And Ephesus was the second largest city in the Roman Empire. And so it became a hub for planting regional churches. So that was the home base, and they sent out people to start churches in the outlying cities. And so Paul trained these people to go out, and Epaphras was one of these people that was trained. And so he went along, he was sent out to Colossae, along with the neighboring cities of Hierapolis and Laodicea, and they planted churches there. So one of the problems was syncretism of the early church. See, Christianity has Jewish roots, but because of the early missionaries, it grafted on Greek branches, or Gentile, or people like us. But when they took the gospel into the Greek culture or the Hellenistic culture, the temptation was to mix the gospel with Greek philosophy. As a result, they taught a distinction between the spirit and the flesh. It either led to them denying the body or indulging it shamefully or immoral ways. And so a high value was given to the mystical revelation about supernatural things, while at the same time they denied the uniqueness of Jesus Christ. And so this synchristic, or this mixed teaching, found its way to Colossae. And so Paul, and it's heresy, it's wrong, so Paul addresses it. And then there was addressing the nature of Paul's imprisonment. While Paul's imprisonment was not always brutal or inhumane, the charges that he was being charged with was very serious. And so the palace guard oversaw his captivity, and the emperor at that time was the often unpredictable Nero Caesar. Yes, that Nero, the one that supposedly fiddled while Rome burned. And, I mean, burn down your own city that you're ruling? That's crazy. But he blamed the Christians for it. Okay, so there are practical questions that are answered for us in Colossae. In other words, what is so special about Jesus? See, he's much more than just another prophet. He is the very image of God in the flesh, and he is the creator of the universe. And Colossae shows us that. What's the difference between a Christian and a so-called spiritual person? Boy, and that's a question that's really relevant for today. See, spirituality seeks special knowledge and power from spiritual beings and rituals for one's own benefit. But Christians are reborn or renewed by the power of Jesus, and it's done by Jesus alone. See, spirituality tries to control the body by denying it, and it only makes lust and immorality stronger. Christians give control of their body over to Jesus and glorify him. And we'll see that again in chapter 2 of Colossae. And then what are the marks, or some of the marks, of a sanctified or holy lifestyle? See, we need to demonstrate unity with other believers regardless of their backgrounds. The church down the road, the church up the road, as long as they believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, we have that in common. There are things that we can disagree on. There are things that we'll differ on. But as long as we have the basics in common, then we need to agree and practice unity with other believers. It talks about having unity with believers, harmony in our households or houses, and integrity in our business dealings and in our work dealings. So, Colossians has a lot of practical things for us today, just as it did for the Colossae people in that day. And so as we go through it, it's going to teach us to worship right, to think right, and to live right. So it's going to be a good study, exciting study. I hope that you'll follow along each week, and if you haven't liked this, subscribe to do that so that you can follow along with us as we go through. And don't forget, if you get a chance, read through it today. Read through the whole book get a feel for the book, and then we'll start going by section, and it's going to be a great study. Don't forget, we'll be here live in Paris for worship, and if you can't make it, you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube, and have a great Sunday, and we'll talk to you later.